Hi girls, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
You're looking shiny and beautiful.
Right, well, you too.
The black screen. All right, well, we should get started then.
Absolutely.
So this week we're discussing digestion. Yes, and so I think we'll just start by understanding a little bit about where digestion happens. And if you could introduce that idea and start off there.
So we just, as you know, we continue speaking our very simple language about very complex issues. And here, I always find it very useful kind of to draw the parallels of what most people say about, let's say, digestion, right? And how often we hear people saying, oh my goodness, my tummy is rumbling. Do you have something in the fridge? You know, everybody heard that, right? Or, you know, just hang on a minute, just put something in, you know. So we treat our sort of desire or the sign that our body tells us we are empty or a little rumble, right? People who have the rumbles, like, oh my God, I must eat something, okay? So, usually, you know, so that's on one hand, and so we're not really thinking, okay, well, maybe it had nothing to do with me being hungry, you know, where this rumble came from, you know, or also sort of why did I just eat so much because I was so hungry, or why did I just go right for this sugar, you know, and now I'm feeling really exhausted. Or, you know, my goodness, I know that it was like a really too much big steak, you know, it was 300 grams, you know, and that's really a lot. And I feel like it didn't digest and it just sat in my stomach for a long, long time. And, you know, and I feel like something is stuck there and, you know, so you hear these comments, right? Everybody's really familiar with that. And so we have to connect our systems because systems do not work in isolation. And obviously, you know, especially these days, and I know with Oli many times we spoke about the mucociliary escalator, about the mucus and about the cilia, right, Oli? And we spoke about the bad fame that the mucus has, right? And that people really always try to get rid of the mucus, you know, try to sort of clear the mucus without really understanding that there is a bad mucus and there is also good mucus, and you know, there is a whole kind of machine, whole apparatus that is operating at each part of our gastrointestinal side, yeah, and or digestion side. And so our digestion pretty much starts, and digestive tract runs from the mouth. Okay, we can say oral cavities, for example, or the mouth, and I will explain a little bit later why I said oral cavity, and all the way to the rectum. Yeah. And so say, my goodness, that's long. And and is it all about the absorption? Well, especially the part that is the oral cavity or the mouth, yeah, where we have our saliva, for example. I'm going to stick with the simple language, okay? So I'm just going to mention a few things that are really relevant and to which you can relate and pay attention. Okay, so and also the stomach, okay, that has a very specific pH. Usually it's quite acidic. It's a pH of 2 or 3, and this is specifically just to neutralize the bacteria and you know, those antigens, and so that they can proceed in the you know, pathogens free to the small intestine. Small intestine, it's a huge area, you know, like the size of a small tennis court basically, and it is responsible for the absorption of the nutrients, and this is where most of the absorption of the nutrients happens. Yeah. So shall I elaborate a little bit on the mouth?
Yes, so that's very interesting because I know I'm quite a fast eater from being in boarding school and rushed to eat. And I know I hear that for chewing the food is like the first place that it starts to break down. So I've become a little more aware of this now.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if you could elaborate, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So again, the same people eat on the go, right? Just eating on the go. I just grab sandwich, you know, which could be with gluten, for example. And a lot of people, they're not really digesting gluten well, okay? I would like to point that out because we are really beyond the testing for gluten intolerance unless somebody is very evidently sort of having manifestations that there is a gluten intolerance, maybe just feeling very tired, very exhausted, you know, dark circles under the eyes, and really having a very bad, you know, stomach pains and cramps. So, you know, this is very important to pay attention to gluten, that's for sure. And amongst the others, you know, there is a very bad absorption could be going there that is also causing the inflammation of the digestive apparatus. And so going back to the mouse, these days we know that, for example, something like saliva, it's hugely important, okay? And we need saliva in order to moisture the goods that we're putting in the food, okay? And it's actually where we start producing and digesting the carbohydrates, okay? And again, I see that some people really have a very big misrepresentation about the carbohydrates. They think, oh, but I don't eat carbs, you know. But still, somebody would have eat even the gluten-free bread, or even gluten-free pasta, for example, you know, potato, all, you know, fiber that would contain the carbohydrates, okay? And they are good things, but you know, and they need our saliva. So this is really important. Also, saliva, it's a neutralizer because it has a certain sort of pH, and it helps to safeguard the space against the bacteria, okay, in the mouth. And we also pay attention to people who, for example, complain about the gingivitis or periodontitis. So here we're speaking about the receding gums, for example, or shaky teeth, or bleeding gums. So all this is really very good to address, okay? Because our teeth are there basically to produce more digestive juices, okay? So chewing is actually good, and it's also good for promoting the right pH in the stomach, you know, because obviously, especially if we are eating meat, for example, yeah, or even if we are eating some amino acids, which is the building blocks of proteins, okay? And that could be if we are eating eggs, for example, okay, not everybody can eat eggs, but if we are eating fish, if we're eating chicken, and you know, a bit of rabbit, whatever, that's very important, the pH of our stomach acid, okay? And if we are constantly creating smoothie-like stuff, okay, which is again another trend these days, and it's certainly been for a while, people went kind of in all this blending, yeah, yes. The Thermomix just was like, wow, you know, detox smoothies and overusing the detox smoothies, for example, especially just blending. So remember that chewing is very good, and with chewing we actually activate. Now, I mentioned the sort of receding gums, and that can be produced the shaky teeth and so on, and the bleeding gums. So this is actually due to an imbalanced bacteria in the oral cavities, okay? There are specific bacteria, and these days we can test it with the oral microbiome testing, that they eat our gums, okay? So teeth become shaky. So and we can restore that, okay? We can definitely improve it. So we know that for example, cleaning your teeth with xylitol is very important. So not just the toothpaste without the fluoride, but cleaning your teeth with xylitol, it's really important. It contains a substance that is polyalcohols, and it kills pathogens in the oral cavities. We have seen people really improving even dental cavities. Okay, so just try that. And also there are chewing gums that are not that bad after all to chew on the chewing gums. These days I would really suggest that you chew maybe on something with stevia. There are really good chewing gums with xylitol also, and also yeah, so just on those ones, this is really good. Obviously don't forget to scrape your tongue in the morning. You can also do the oil pulling with for example coconut oil. This is just to safeguard this space that also produces the enzyme, the first enzyme. It's called amylase. Okay, and so yeah, this is as far as our teeth are concerned. And when you use the brush, just remember that it is very important not just brush very forcefully, but it's the quality of brushing. It's the time that you are brushing. Okay, so spend good 5-10 minutes with your teeth. Remember that it's not just an aesthetical point of our bodies. Obviously a beautiful smile, it's very important, but you know, it's a strong teeth. Okay, and generally teeth also, interestingly enough, reflect the state of our bones. Okay, how our bone density is, and if we are really losing some minerals. Okay, if there is some osteoporosis maybe even happening. Okay, because it's the teeth are composed of the type of bones. So you know, just watch out for that and take care of your mouth. If you can, if you're really suspecting that there are some pathogens in the oral cavities, and you know, you can run the oral microbiome test. I find those tests are incredible, and these days we have labs that really do them beautifully, studying the ecology of the oral microbiome. I know that in the UK we have in vivo, in the States we have the Cyrex, and I think Genova also does that. In Spain we use the teletest, and so on. Okay.
Fantastic. So that we've covered the mouth. So now we're going down the esophagus, and the first point then that it gets after the mouth is the stomach.
Yeah.
So can you just explain a little bit about what our food's doing once it gets down there?
Okay. So when the food gets to the stomach, okay, the stomach has a very specific pH, and it's usually quite acidic. Okay, so it's about 2, I think 2 or 3, so very, very acidic. And so this is just to neutralize the pathogens on the food, and generally this is where we have also the enzyme called the peptase or pepsin. And so this if we, especially if people are not eating meat, for example, or they're just concentrating on smoothies, or people who have had some issues with food, you know, they may actually, like anorexia or bulimia, for example, or just over dieting, okay, they may have some issues with the pH of the stomach. It may go just too alkaline, and then it actually activates the proliferation of Helicobacter pylori, okay, and Helicobacter pylori thrives in the alkaline environment, and it actually starts proliferating and causing the imbalance also in the small intestine, okay, where we have really very little bacteria, okay, but this bacteria is very strategic in the small intestine, basically mostly just to help the digestion and the enzyme production. Amongst them is the famous Candida albicans, you know, which is actually a very good bacteria in the small intestine, but it becomes pathogenic and bad when it gets out of balance, okay, the dysbiosis. And so, yeah, and that's how we come to the small intestine, where we have the absorption.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's quite overlooked anyway from someone who's not coming from a medical background, you know, that a lot of emphasis always seems to be put on the actual stomach, and yeah. So it'd be interesting to hear about the small intestine.
Yeah. So we hear very often, for example, about the issues like, oh, I'm using laxative, for example, the golden seeds, for example, or I'm using fucus or sen, for example. Okay, and people are constantly people who are constipated. Okay, they can only think about moving something in the intestine, sometimes without even identifying where exactly is it. Okay, so here what happens in the small intestine, this is the absorption side. Okay, the absorption of the nutrients, and so nutrients have to really become very munched. Okay, and they have to become very they have to become very small molecules. Okay, so that they can basically be absorbed and carried by the blood to the sites where the blood distributes the nutrients. Okay, and so in this sense we have, for example, very, very important, we have our mucosa that actually helps us to defend, the first line of defense in our small intestine, and actually also in the respiratory system also. Can you give me something is going on with the phone? Can we just sort this phone out? What is that? Can you just give that to me, please? Thank you. Sorry, this is the mobile technology. Sorry about that, but that's just going on and on. Okay, well, let's just turn it off. Okay, apologies about that. Number one, make sure that you chew well and you chew slowly. Make it your time. Know your mouth, which side you have to chew on. Get really conscious about if there is a side that you cannot chew and what's going on with that side. Start healing your mouth then. Check if you are getting any reflux, there is a lot of acid each time that you are eating. What is going on there, okay? Not just testing for Helicobacter pylori, oh my God, I've got Helicobacter pylori, and I actually have got antibodies for Helicobacter pylori, it's been there for a long, long time. So, okay, start chewing and also start taking something like gastroase, for example, zinc carnosine. Start taking some glass of water with lemon in the morning. Start putting lots of lemon, plenty of lemon on everything, all the food that you eat, making it pre-digestible. If you don't have mast cell issues or histamine issues, okay, then you can actually use some fermented foods also. Anything that is pre-digestible, okay, that helps the digestion. And so in this way you will start seeing the improvements. So with the small intestine, again, the more you munched, okay, the better the digestion, the better the absorption will be. And so basically there will be not this huge balls of food in the intestine, okay, in the small intestine. And so it will be easier just to break it down, because this is where the breakage continues, okay. There is a lot of enzymes that will be participating at the chemical level in it, and sometimes there is a lack of enzymes, okay. And in this sense, the enzymes are drawn from all over the place, okay. The enzymes could be drawn, for example, from pancreas. We know that the pancreas gives us the enzymes that help us to further digest carbohydrates, but also especially fats, okay. And so this is very, very important. There is some bile juices that come from the bile, which is also very important. So make sure that you are eating some leafy greens, for example, like watercress, some rockets, for example. So those ones are really good for the bile production, for the emulsification. And check your pancreatic elastase if you are feeling like, I'm constantly having some diarrhea, or changes in the bowel, for example. You can speak to your clinician maybe if this is something recurrent, and especially if you are having some pain on the back of your back, okay? So it could not be just any pain, it could actually be associated with pancreatic pain. So you know, nothing wrong just with checking your pancreatic elastase and start correcting that. Also, absorption is very good at the level of the stones that some people can create. So, for example, if there is not good absorption of calcium, for example, okay, or some oxalates, this is the products, for example, the anti-nutrients contained in kale and spinach, okay, so you can form stones, okay, in your kidneys. So just be aware of that. Be aware of how you feel after the ingestion of food and how you are really digesting. So you also feel that the food is just like sort of boom, you know, sitting on your wall, and it's you feel that it is just not moving. So we can look here like, okay, I might be not digesting the type of food, and also this would be associated very frequently that maybe there is something going on at the level of the microvilli or villi. They are just little hairs, okay, and they are promoting on one hand the absorption of the nutrients, and on another hand they are also promoting the movement of the nutrients, okay. So they are basically safeguarding against the intestinal atrophy. This is where very often, you know, the bolus of the food is just not moving, okay, and it just sits there, and the person will get constipated, and it will take long time for digesting to take. So very often it's not a question of slow metabolism, you know, this is, I think, quite overused words these days. Oh, I've got fast metabolism, I've got slow metabolism, but it's more about the deficiencies of the enzymes that we really have to be looking at. Then, speaking about the absorption, I definitely would also say that these days, you know, through the gut, the nutrients get into the blood, and so the blood is actually, and it's a very small molecules. They're basically the organic acids, okay, that are then distributed through the body, and so we need to see if our blood liquid enough, because especially these days when the person is really may have overexposure to viruses or bacterial pathogens, you know, the blood could thicken, okay, or the volume of the blood could be actually lower. We see that in people with Lyme disease, people have chronic fatigues, for example, which is very often associated with overexposure to some pathogens. So the blood volume will be lower, and the blood tend to be also thicker sometimes, and so that means that the blood flow will not be the same, okay, and you may benefit from taking some proteolytic or fibrinolytic enzymes like even nattokinase or serrapeptidase. They're really beautiful. Or even boluoke, for example, boluoke lambokinase, so very well researched enzymes. I personally like the brand. I think there is one brand that does it. It's called Canadian RNA, okay, and boluoke, and so it basically helps to maintain the balance of the coagulation in the blood. So just be aware of that there is different factors are involved, and especially if you are eating, you think well, but you're actually feeling unwell. By this I mean you feel tired, you feel pale, you feel like you are losing weight, or you actually feel bloated, you know, like edema-like situation. So start thinking, okay, well, something is definitely lacking. Okay, and another thing that I would like to mention, just the role of minerals. We cannot absorb anything without minerals. So just make sure maybe you add, when you eat, a little bit of the filtered seawater. It's on sale these days, or even some minerals through the Himalayan salts also. That is really beautiful. It really helps to absorb the nutrients.
That's great. I really liked how you've been mentioning over the past few weeks that we are not what we eat, we're what we absorb. And for me, that really changed a chip in my mind, because, you know, I've always thought, oh, I eat really healthy, or you hear your friends, oh no, I've got such a healthy diet, but I've still got this, or my stomach bloats, or, you know, and it's the absorption that's really the thing that we're going for, no?
It's the absorption, absolutely. And it's only also it's the fermentation, over fermentation, okay, that we're eating too fast. We're also mixing different groups of food, for example. And here I would point out, you know, let's get informed about the soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, okay. So insoluble fiber, such as broccoli, for example, brassica family, you know, Brussels sprouts, for example, you know, those ones, just to mention a few, okay, because I know that people eat that a lot. So this is insoluble fiber, and if you have too much, it's just going to sit in your gut, okay. So be careful with that, just be aware, and separate it. Don't eat it together with the soluble fiber, which could be your, for example, pumpkin, courgettes, you know, zucchini. So because the transit time is different, okay.
This is great. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so just we're helping, we're facilitating the absorption. If you are eating, and now there is a time, for example, for the mushrooms, right? So you can beautifully sort of prepare them, and just remember, if you put some lemon juice on them, that would be much better. Mushrooms contain beta-glucans, and so they are beautifully and much easier absorbed with the presence of you know, lemon, or the yeah.
Oh, great. That's fantastic. And can you just maybe point out a few signs that we might see that we're absorbing poorly, or we have poor absorption?
Yeah.
You mentioned bloating, I know.
Yeah, yeah. So it will be definitely bloating, fermentation. It will be also the overreaction, you know, when people would get sort of too sad after the food, or they would get too moody. People who have dark circles under the eyes, okay? People who develop great fatigue in spite of eating apparently well. People who lose weight, or people who actually put on weight. So I would really, or people who notice, for example, you know, that I'm developing the canker sores, for example, or my eyesight is really not improving. So just watch out for those. And this actually, or my hair is falling out, you know, I can see that my nails are really very brittle and very fragile, and I've got these lines on my nails, okay? So these could be definitely the signs. So for example, you know, that actually I find that you know, my skin is very dry, and so my eyes are very itchy. So itchy eyes actually a sign of the dryness of the mucosa. So just pay attention to that. And speaking about the villi, the macrovilli, that helps to, on one hand, promotes the moving of the bolus and you know, the evacuation, proper going to the bathroom properly. I would, and for the absorption also of the nutrients, I would mention that smokers, they actually can burn those villi, okay? And so this is one of the reasons why smoking is not good, okay? And this is really a good example. And another one is that gluten is very well known also to cause the erosion of those microvilli. So just be aware of that, and remember that this structure of sort of villi and mucus is actually also shared with our respiratory system. Okay, so that's something very, very important. I can also mention one thing that I really like, and I had really beautiful, very effective experience with that, and this is the salt pipe. Okay, so whenever we feel that there is probably could be an issue with the mucus, okay, and here I will be speaking about maybe some rather, you know, thick mucus that may be appearing, because mucus is not, you know, in this case I'm mentioning the mucus that is, you know, productive, I mean, by being expelled. Okay, in case, for example, of smokers, that could be some dark particles coming out when they're coughing, or there could be some yellow mucus, there could be some you know, green mucus. So those are bacterial infections. Definitely watch out for the pathogens. And there could be some just quite dense transparent mucus. Okay, so usually this will be the lactose intolerance. Okay, and so I find that the salt pipe is really also very helpful, just to help us clear out all those you know, pathogens that sometimes get trapped in the mucus. And when the mucus is when the good mucosa is fragile. Okay, and so yeah, just differentiating between the good mucosa that we have that helps the absorption and the bad mucus. Okay, and so sometimes with inhaling the salt pipe, we really can sort of help to differentiate the good mucus from the bad ones, and it will help us to expel the things. Okay.
Great. And what are some different ways we can improve our absorption? Like through certain supplements, or?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously eating slowly is a good start.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. So there is more and more research coming out on what really stands for the good digestion. And, you know, we now have so much research into the mucous membranes and into the cell membranes, actually, that, you know, we are what we absorb, because after all, as we mentioned, these molecules have to be small enough, and then they have to be small enough actually in order to enter into the cell, and it is inside the cell where the whole generation of the energy is basically about the generating the energy in the body. Okay, so that we can live our life in an optimal way. So, you know, so this is the ultimate absorption, okay, and this is why we would be feeling really good. So I would not name a lot of supplements, but I definitely would name L-glutamine. This is a beautiful supplement. You can get it in powder form, and also in capsules, and this helps to calm down the mucous membranes, to sort of stabilize them. That's the first line of defense in our digestive tract and small intestine, and it will also help against the, in case, permeability of the intestinal wall, okay, or so-called leaky gut. So that's beautiful. It has also some calming effects. Watch out for those people who don't feel calm once they consume L-glutamine, amino acid L-glutamine. Then, you know, that actually nothing to do with L-glutamine, but there is some enzymes lacking more on that side. So, you know, it's more related to the epigenetics, probably. Just have a look into that. I think omega-7, especially sea buxonberry oil, this is also very, very beautiful supplementing, because it helps us to nourish mucosa, and actually helps to really recreate the mucosa. So that's beautiful. Some flavonoids are really good also, and this is just to reduce the inflammation. For example, it could be andrographis, it could be bical skull scarp. I also like very much and see good results when we are using tinctures, for example, such as marshmallow, okay, or golden seal. Those ones are very effective to help us create a really good digestive apparatus, to optimally absorb. I also like using L-cysteine and L-threonate, these amino acids that help to again rebuild the gut and also contribute to a healthy mucosa. Sometimes it's good to also add a little bit of inulin. It comes, I think, from the artichoke, and you can just add a little bit. Some people find that it's actually makes them quite gassy, but it's not a smelly gas. And if you just add very little, it's really very good prebiotic. So it actually helps the good gut bacteria to grow. Have a look into that. Okay. Have a look into Saccharomyces boulardii, for example. Have a look at N-acetylcysteine if you feel that you get bloated very easily, and maybe just start eliminating some food that have anti-nutrients. Those ones could be, for example, the chickpeas, okay, the kidney beans. So just pay attention to that. And actually, if you buy chickpeas or kidney beans already ready-made, okay, so they come usually in the glass jar, they seem to be much more digestible, okay. You can just experiment. And obviously, there are many different nutritional strategies that are available these days.
Now, I was going to say, we're going to cut off in a minute, but if you do have any questions, we can rejoin with the same code and password. So we'll end it here because it's going to cut out very soon. And if you want to jump back on and if you have any questions, we can do that if that's something that you feel like. I just didn't want it to cut out, right as you were mid-sentence.
Absolutely.
I have to go make dinner.
Okay.
Good, healthy dinner.
Okay.
But,
fantastic. Well, then I'm not worried. I just didn't.
But thank you. I have a question actually about the good mucus and the bad mucus, but maybe I send you an email.
Yes, and we have your email too about your topic too, which will be coming up too, Angela.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay,
too.
lovely to see you.
Bye.
Yes, that was good. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, well,
great.
thank you so much.
Thank you for attending. Thank you. Bye-bye.